deep into the program just about a year ago, coming from 20 years of restaurant experience and 5 years of wine sales. I'm a certified sommelier. I'm happy to be here. If anybody needs wine, my husband's an advanced sommelier. If we need wine parties later, we love hosting. We're in the process of moving to a larger house to host. My 27-year-old stepson has autism, so kind of really excited to be here in that sense of really being able to connect with him. I've known him for 9 years now, and he actually went through the culinary program in Forest Park. Yeah, he kicked butt. So just really happy to be here for not only for every student, but specifically for him.
I'm still on. They have wine and a chef in the house.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Jen. I'm an environmental science student. I have a background in biology, but lately I've kind of shifted towards education. So I'm normally a children's educator for like gardening and parks and outdoor spaces. So if I accidentally call you buddy, hi friends. That's normal. That's normal for me. Don't worry about this.
Sweet. I'm Kayla Hancher. I'm a senior at Maryville University studying interior design, graduating May. Senior show's April 25th. If you want to come, I'll be there.
Get out there.
Hopefully. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
I'm Kasha Kwasniewski. I'm a senior at SIU Carbondale in interior design, graduating in May as well. I'm the president of our IIDA chapter, and I'm really passionate about design, and I'm also excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm not a designer. I'm a social worker. I graduated from WashU's program in 2023, excuse me, for social work. And now I work as a therapist doing therapy work. I work with some of the college students at WashU, and I also work with a grade school. And so I get to see some kiddos who have neurodiversity or identify as neurodiverse.
Hello, I'm Natalie Shepard. I am a senior at Rankin. I am in the architecture program. This is my second go around. I first went to school for baking and pastry, and I worked as a pastry chef for a few years, so kitchen. And then I was like, oh, it's not me for me forever. So I came back, and this is my second go, like I said, in architecture, and very happy to be here.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Okay. Here's a hard-hitting, riveting question number 1. How do the physical spaces at your school, classroom, study areas, lounges, etc., support or hinder learning and concentration? Who can connect with that question immediately?
I'll go ahead.
Okay, great.
So my days can be long. I'm either there from 4 hours to 6 hours, depending on the day. Usually eat breakfast and lunch there, so I have a lot of things. I got my backpack full of all of my stuff, and sometimes that doesn't fit into the backpack, so it overflows into a tote bag. And then there's also lunch and breakfast, so I have a lot of things, 2 vessels, coffee, water. And we have studio space, one of them that has very large desks, which I like a lot. I prefer that because I have a lot of area to drop all my things down, to put my computer, my sketchbook, pens, all the stuff. So I feel very comfortable in that zone, and also the outlet is at the right, so I can just easily plug my computer in when I need to. Our computers are our lives. Sometimes we're up really late, and then I get into school and I'm like, I gotta charge that thing immediately. Like, it won't even turn on right now. So that space is really supportive for me.
Anybody else have a thought there?
We have a similar setup in our studios. We have very large desks, and I feel like something that really helps that we added recently are these very large conference tables. So at the beginning of every class, we all kind of meet at this one table. Our instructor tells us what we're going to do that day, what we need to focus on, because our studios are 3 hours long each. Capstones are 6 hours, so sometimes we're there for 12 hours straight. And it's great to have that space. I do wish at our campus we had more individual spaces, focus pods, huddle rooms, something where if you're working on a group project, you can go somewhere just with your group and be just with them. Or if you need, head down time and you just need to focus with yourself, that's easier. I'm a big talker. I love talking to people, and sometimes I need just my own room where I can go and just, nobody's allowed to talk to me. I need like full blinds, a dark space. But having like that large room where we're all together is awesome as well, because I am a talker, like I just said, and being like able to collaborate with everyone is super great. So yeah.
Anybody else?
Oh, great.
No, you go. Great.
So as a non-design student, I was thinking of WashU's campus, and specifically the Brown School houses 3 different main buildings for social work and public health and public policy. And we have a new building that's LEED certified, I think like 2015. It's beautiful, lots of sunlight, classrooms are great, there's lots of outlets and tables for collaboration. You can move everything so you can change it to how you want it to be. We have this older building that's from like the early 2000s, and everybody always hated having classes over there because they're cramped, like they're not set up for how we have classes now, which is very discussion based, and there's not a lot of outlets, and we all have our laptops now, and just it's not conducive to how we have space, how we hold classroom space anymore.
The furniture's not supporting
The
the
furniture
use.
is- No, the also I would say the structure of the classrooms aren't either.
Yeah.
We're always in the basement too. I don't know why. And so I'm big on light, and to be able to have a lot of that natural light helped me to, in those 3-hour classes, to continue being engaged and kind of like not feel so turned in. And then also just having space where we're constantly in discussion, we're always yapping, and so like to have those spaces where we're not hearing the classroom next to us, or like when we do have like quiet time or we're like working on other things, like you can focus because you're not hearing like what's going on next door.
Great. It's like you prepared, because the next question really talks about those environmental features and environmental elements. So not necessarily the furniture, but to get to this, what types of environmental features, lighting, noise level, temperature, big one, seating arrangements have the most significant impact on your comfort and productivity? What features? Can't we all feel like this gray day is affecting us? I think that speaks to what you were just saying, but what environmental features have the most significant impact on your comfort and productivity?
I think acoustics, I would say, would be number 1 for neurodivergence or any normies anyways. I really think that sound is the first sense that's probably perceived. And I think that there, with so many group activities and so much conversation going on, that it is important to be able to have a little bit of respite time or time to be able to sneak away and still be able to do your homework or your schoolwork, but not feel obligated to speak with people at the moment. Just a little bit of personal time, I think, is really important for those environments. Just if you need a little bit of a brain break or just some time to regroup, I think that it's really nice to have those little side areas for that, for sure. And sight, obviously being number 2, with the natural lighting, biophilic design, I think that's really important. But just keeping in mind that the glare can be really distracting for some as well.
I think going off of lighting, specifically in our studio, we have a lot of natural light, but the actual lighting that's integrated into the room, if we're trying to look at materials or something, we're always struggling. We're like, oh my gosh, if it wasn't for this lighting, this would look completely different than it's gonna look in the actual space. So maybe being able to like adjust our lighting a little bit more would be helpful. And also with the windows, security feels like when we're pulling all-nighters and we're surrounded in a room by windows and then the doors are completely glass, it doesn't really feel safe. So I don't know if anybody's really familiar with Carbondale, but it's just like, yeah, you don't really like
what you're talking
feel
about.
super
It's
safe.
terrifying.
And like when your
Actually,
professors,
it's all windows.
yeah, and when your professors are like warning you, like don't stay here alone, like just things like that. Well, yeah, and, yeah,
To the main road.
yeah,
That was the biggest part.
yeah. The
Right
main
on
drag in
there.
Carbondale is
Yeah,
like right there,
Yeah.
so that's just a big thing in our studio specifically.
Well, it's probably a scenario where you can't really do your work in other locations.
Right.
Where it's very difficult to do our specific work in other locations. Maybe some of you folks that are not especially focused on design in the way we know are a little more at ease to move to a more crowded location or a more bustling location, but back to that idea of noise too. So it's tough to find that happy medium, I think, or a space that really supports all those needs and inclusion of people together. Okay, well, this next question really addresses that in a little bit deeper way. Are there areas on campus where you feel particularly supported or challenged due to the sensory experience? Light, noise, visual clutter, etc.
At UMSL, I don't know if you've ever been to UMSL, but it's our main building, the Millennium Student Center, is like a big two, pretty much. Really cool, lots of cool art. And then there's a radio station and a quiet room directly across from each other. So there are speakers constantly blaring into the quiet room, and so no one treats it as a quiet room, so now there's a quiet room. So if you're making quiet room, great, you know, like you put the best materials in there, you've made it like super soundproof. If it's right across from a radio station or the main cafeteria is right below it, it's not actually a quiet room. There's also like a vent that goes from that room into like a meeting room that is consistently requested. So you're sitting in there and now you're in that person's meeting, like word for word. So thinking about where you're trying to achieve quietness, not just like insularly, but like think of the whole building. Like, is this where people are having big parties and meeting? Probably not a good, not a good building for that. That's my take.
That's great. That's a great point. Anybody else find any spaces on their campus particularly challenging?
At SIU, I would say we're a little bit outdated. Specifically looking at our student center, the dining area is just very overstimulating, but the places that people treat as quiet rooms are really just like abandoned spaces, essentially. For example, our basement has more like a maker space, but there's booths and things that are comfortable to sit in. It's very much just an abandoned space, but people like to go there because it's abandoned and it's quiet. So I think that if we had some intentionally integrated spaces, it would be a lot more effective and not just, there's like actually no lighting in there, like they're just like lamps. So it's not a healthy way to achieve that, but that's what the students tend to do.
Anybody else?
We have a classroom that is located, it's an older building and it's located next to some like rooftop camping units. So that's, you know, sometimes those pick on, which the building that I'm mainly in, it's an older building, which is wonderful that they kept it, they preserved it. I don't know how they could address that. It's probably expensive, but that is a distraction at times. So.
Anybody have space in their life that you find especially challenging at work? Your actual desk space? Anybody? Yeah.
Well, mine is weird because I just moved to Espin where I'm on like a hotel in space, but like people walk behind me all the time because I don't have anything in my back. And I'm in between our library space where meetings are going on and our cafe space now. So I hear and then I can see reception from there too. So like I have all three of those, and it's like I get distracted easily because I'm in the middle of all of that.
Yeah, if you're a social person, that's a bad spot for it, probably. Yeah, that's everybody doing. Okay, what specific changes would you like to see in classrooms or study areas to make them more inclusive for all students, especially those with sensory processing issues or other neurodiverse traits? Did you get that? Do you want me to repeat it?
I think it would be great if, like obviously there's universal design and you know done for everyone, but that doesn't mean there's one like universal solution to meet everyone's needs. And so I love working in a busy area and having, you know, a bunch of noise. I can kind of focus better. If I have my headphones on, it's like usually some pretty upbeat music because I just get in the zone. But you know, other people, they want to be completely silent, white noise. So just having different spaces that people can go to, you know, they can change the lighting, they can change the temperature, they can sit on a couch or they can sit on a desk, and just having the autonomy to choose like where you want to work and how you want to work, I think would make a huge difference.
Playing off of that, sorry. Sitting at desks, absolutely. Also just the idea of standing at desks too, I think is really important. We're seeing more of that in the workspaces for adults post-college, but just having that opportunity in class as well. We're not meant to be sitting all this time in as restaurant. You know, I was standing on my feet for 12 hours a day, and I work better upright, and I'm just able to zone in a little bit more posture-wise and everything like that as well. I think having that ability is great. Also, I have a classmate of mine she has ASD, and this is my first semester with her, but, and same with my, autism spectrum disorder. Also with my stepson, I see it too when they're overstimulated or just overwhelmed or just need some time to collect themselves. There's a lot of removing themselves from that group activity and pacing, or just putting on their headphones and kind of just walking back and forth in the most quiet area, which happens to be the hallway. Or at my house, it's, he'll go upstairs to the guest room if we're having a family over for dinner. But I think having an area where anybody can go to just, whether it is stand real quick or a wellness space, I think, with a little bit of room to move is important.
Great feedback. Anybody else?
I was thinking something pretty similar, but in a different way. Like when you're in a classroom, you don't have the choice. Like you're not choosing like where or when you can study. You're committed to being here for our classes for 3 hours long. It can be really hard just for anybody to be sitting for that long, but especially for people who really want to be more mobile, or just that it helps them to focus to stand or just pace in the back. And some of the classrooms were just not designed well for that. Like first of all, there's no space to stand.
No space.
Especially some of those older classrooms. And then in the classrooms that there was space to stand, anytime somebody would leave the classroom, like it wasn't conducive to us to continue learning, because they would have to either cross the front of the classroom, the doors were really loud, and sometimes that made people uncomfortable and like, can I leave right now? Do I need to wait until there's like an actual break? And that's also just not very conducive to learning.
Great feedback, you guys. How do you feel the campus overall? So big picture. Campus could better accommodate neurodivergent students, such as those with autism or ASD or ADHD, in terms of the physical environment. So you've spoken about a lot of that. It seems like really extrapolating that out, but where are some key places that you feel like incorporating those sorts of spaces you just described, a wellness space, or having actual physical space and so on, would be most impactful, best received by the population campus-wide?
I think having something in every building would be nice.
Yeah.
I'm a type 1 diabetic, and so sometimes like I have to do a pump change midday, and the only place I can go is the bathroom, where like a bunch of people are using the bathroom, they're all watching me. Sometimes I have to, lift up my shirt and do it. And so I'm not being neurodivergent, but just having a space in every building where someone can go. Like I know there's people that have to breastfeed, they have to walk completely across campus. It's a bad room, like it just looks bad, they don't want to be in there. So just having like well-designed spaces in every space, I think would be important.
Not to use spectrum in a different way, but a full spectrum of accommodations.
Yeah.
I feel like that's really what is lacking in a lot of places. Anybody else have another thought on that?
I think the key word for accessible design is adjustability, because I'm autistic and surprise, I'm a secret agent. I've had so many people like, you don't look autistic. It's like, yeah, you can be pretty. So like they're staring at me. I'm like, yes. But so as a child, my mom would try to get me to interact with neurotypical people specifically, but my teachers would try to pair me up with the other autistic kids, because I was the quiet version and they were like the loud version. There were so many, and we hated each other. Like, just because we're autistic doesn't mean we're the same kind, because it is a spectrum. It is called ASD. Like, I have completely different symptoms from somebody else. I also have, we found out, a connective tissue disorder. So my eardrums are like super thin. Like I can hear every single thing that's happening in a building. So if you put me in an old building, I can hear every pipe, I can hear every like air conditioner, I can hear every conversation, because it's all like traffic. Like right now, there's like 5 different things.
Yeah, you do
Like
have superpowers.
Yeah.
I can tell you, like I can
have
hear like
superpowers.
the train going by, like even if it's like from, like it went by, I think like an hour ago from now, but I can still hear it. Like it's, like I can still hear it. Like there's like things on the track. No one believes me, but I swear to God. Like I can be like, oh, a train was here, and they're like, it's like, no, if you listen to the like the rails and like rings, yeah, it's fine. But adjustability, because I will want like complete complete silence, because if somebody is talking, I'm in that conversation, whether I like it or not. My brain doesn't tune out things. There's like, right now you may have heard like the loud fan when you walked in, but your brain slowly tunes it out. My brain physically does not do that. So every conversation I'm hearing, whereas somebody might like that tuned out noise to help them focus, it makes them feel. Have you ever heard, I'm a children's educator, have you ever heard of parallel play? Parallel play is a concept where particularly young autistic children will see someone else coloring, and then they feel like they're having a conversation when they're playing together if they're also coloring, even if they're not making eye contact, even if they're not like sharing crayons, or it's just you're doing the same thing in the same space, and that makes you feel connected to that person. And where was I going? I sneezed and I totally lost it. But adjustability, like somebody will want that, somebody will be distracted by that. So things like blinds, being able to have, like, there's a building on campus where you have to call somebody to like unlock the thing so they can close the blinds. Why? We're not gonna break the blinds, we're all adults here, like just let us adjust it. So like the garage door in the break room here, that's awesome, because you can like decide if you want to be a part of that, or if you want to have people walking around. Like adjustability, keyword adjustability, that's what I was going with.
Can I take on that, which is, I'm the intern and fund architect, right? One thing that we look at, we do a lot of K through 12, and I think something that we talk about a lot too is not always having to remove those with ASD out of the classroom to accommodate that. So we're looking also at things, we do a lot of research with trauma-informed design on how we can accommodate it within the classroom also. So we're not just removing kids from the classroom to have them take that moment, but also how to really get them to figure out how to self-soothe, whether it's a piece of furniture, whether it's a tactile object, something like that. So as you're doing, like as you are thinking about designing in K through 12, if anybody goes into that, that's also another thing that we're seeing a lot of, that we're trying to figure out too with furniture, is how do we keep kids in the classroom and that mix of, diversity when it comes to that. So
I think it's so important, especially if you're starting out a project, to really lay that groundwork ahead of time so you can constantly go back with the client and say, we're designing to this, and this goal equals those assets. It equals equality for vision, it equals equality for audiology. It's really just baking in all of those things at the beginning of a project so that the project team is constantly focused on that, and it's not, later you're trying to put this on the table and they don't see value in it. That becomes, I think, part of the struggle as well. So it's kind of timing, setting up the parameters of the project so that you are working to those inclusive goals is great. Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything to that? You need it louder back there.
I have a question.
Yeah,
We talked a lot about like physical space, and I would be curious to know like about instruction types that you all are experiencing. And like, there's the traditional where you're standing at the front of the room and everyone else is like reading there.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've experienced other types of that. If any of those feel more conducive to any of these behaviors, or just how the rooms are set up to support that.
I have a psychology class I go into in a couple hours, and it's lecture based. And I appreciate the fact that there's a door at the front where, adjacent to the professor, but there are also 4 or 5 tiers up, there's a doorway that leads to that second story, and I really do like that function, just because there is that opportunity to come and go as you need to with less distraction. So I do find that, I didn't know that second door existed until like 2 weeks ago. But,
Needed it.
Yeah, exactly. But in that same building with the lecture hall, there is a really great area, a flexible space area for lounge seating. There are a couple pod type things, not completely enclosed, but areas that I use, with my flashcards to kind of review some things and eat while I'm doing that. And having that privacy, but also still getting that light and things like that.
Are you guys experiencing other types of learning environments?
A lot of my classes are actually in our studio. We don't go to other classrooms that often. In a way that we have been handling lecture styles is we'll go to the conference table and all meet, or a teacher has like a rolling TV cart and she comes to our studio desks, because it's just kind of like our safe space. Like we have made those studio desks ours, and I feel like we actually pay more attention to what's going on whenever we're able to be in our own space and not just like at a big conference table. I know she does it like based on what the class wants to do, but we pretty much always opt to like stay at our desks. And then it just also feels more open, like having everybody sit not like at a table where we're all facing the teacher, but we're kind of facing each other, so it just opens up the conversation too.
How many people are in your class?
10.
We do something similar at Maryville, which I love that we do this. So we pretty much start every class together at the big table. There's like 20 of us in each class, and the table fits all of us and could fit more. And then, the teacher, they do, visual presentation, we're listening to them talk, and then after we break out into our studio desks, and then the teacher comes to each of us individually, which I love, because sometimes I need something repeated twice, because I didn't understand it the first time, or sometimes I need them to visually show me what I need to be doing, because everyone has different learning styles. Like some people, they learn best when you show them how to do it. Sometimes they need written instructions on how to do it. And so just being able to have like that 2 type of learning formats in one is great.
Do you guys feel like you've been able to identify your learning style now that you're kind of at the precipice of graduation, or maybe you are a multi-degree person, and how to adapt and sort of leverage what you need out of the classroom experience? Do you feel like you can connect with that?
I feel like it's a little bit different for me, at least, how I've learned in school based how I've learned in the workplace.
Yeah.
I definitely think that like in the workplace, mentorship and like hands-on is how I learned, but then in school it was being taught, like from the teacher and me just absorbing it. So that was a little different.
Yeah, I feel like it comes with age. Like, I look back at when I was in high school and I felt really like lost and I didn't know all that about myself, but this is, being older, coming back to school, I'm not afraid to do like what I know works for me. And for me, like the one-on-one, we do the same thing. We meet in the morning and then we break out and we have individual discussions, and and then from there, in the lecture style classrooms, having my computer and my notebook. That But yeah, I think everything with time. I think that's something developed over time, and then also having instructors sit with you one-on-one helps. Like everyone in my class, because we all do learn differently, that way they can gear their teaching towards that one person.
Yeah.
And moment.
And you even build like better relationships with your professors, which like overall makes a more comfortable environment for you. Because then if you have a concern, you can easily go to them and bring that up, and you're not going to be judged because you have like this already personal connection with them, and so that helps a lot.
Small classes.
Yeah.
Small
classes. Yeah, small classes. Okay. How do you feel about the accessibility of your campus for the students with different sensory needs and disabilities? What improvements could be made for those folks? You see that maybe more or less.
Chairs that are attached to desks are devils.
Are the devil? Okay.
We hate them. We all hate them. They're so hard to get, especially if you're like trying to you're late, you're like trying to like scoot in and put your bag down.
Yeah.
Or like somebody has their bag like underneath the swivel mechanism and it gets stuck on their tag or their bag or something. Like just no one likes it. No one in classes that I know likes it. It just makes it throw it.
Yeah.
So the table and chair is your preferred?
It was like, I think no one really likes the auditorium style of classes anymore. Like no one likes that. But it was an auditorium style room where we hosted a lot of events. Like I've spoken, like I teach like gardening stuff on campus. Not teach, but like club events and stuff like that. And I literally watched everybody walk in the room like, or like scooting around, or they tried to move a chair out of the way, but it was stuck to the table. Like they didn't know it was a swivel, and so people bumping in. I'm just watching people like bump along. Oh, that's like I'm glad my classroom doesn't.
Others?
Especially if you're like a bigger person, it doesn't pull out all the way.
lighting, just fluorescent lighting,
wow,
my gosh,
yeah,
like
big
that needs to
light.
go, like
Yeah.
that need, I'll be looking forward to that day where fluorescent is gone completely, because that's extremely distracting for, I think, anybody, or quite a few people, so.
Any other accessibility that you're maybe not thinking of, mobility?
Oh my gosh.
I know my
I'm
sophomore
Right,
year.
right,
Yeah.
right.
My
Yeah.
sophomore year of school, our teacher had all of us get into like wheelchairs, crutches. We really experienced what it could be like for different people with different mobility access. I don't know what word to use there. But it was eye-opening. Just trying to go around campus, being in a wheelchair, it was very difficult because sometimes there were steep hills we had to go up, stairs were a lot further, ramps were a lot further. And so I think just making the overall layout of a campus very accessible is important.
Amazing. Yeah, I think if you're in design, if you haven't done that exercise, give me a call. I'll send it to you because it is probably the most eye-opening thing I've ever experienced. And that is to kind of get to the understanding that the level of design that is provided by ADA is not nearly enough. It's not enough. And I think our job as designers is to push that envelope further and make things more accessible. And there are a lot of things that we're still, we're all talking about. You guys are talking about it. You guys are probably talking about it. Everybody in this room that's connected to design is talking about it. But maybe we don't have a mass consensus about what best practices are just yet, about visual concerns or audiological concerns or sensory concerns. I think there's a lot of swell around what are we gonna do, but there's not a this is the thing, and we need to really lean into it. So I'm glad we're here always talking about these sorts of things and making ourselves better. Absolutely.
I think Jen really said it well,
Yeah.
which it's a spectrum, and
Yeah.
everybody's different, and everybody has different needs. And so having that adjustability is really important.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, what's a space that you find incredibly comfortable and stimulating in a positive way? What are the assets or the elements that you find are contributing to that happy feeling, that content feeling, soothed? Any of those?
I'm a garden person, so I like being outside. That's why I'm sitting next to the window.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen those BuzzFeed articles where it's did you know touching dirt raises your cortisol, or just looking at a fish can relax you, or those things. And that's technically true. There is a lot of science between, there's a lot of really cool hormonal stuff going on right now between sensory aspects, what different senses affect you hormonally. Especially that paper about touching different kinds of dirt. Good fertilized soil can feel the same as a hug, supposedly. It has the same chemical thing. I don't know if you've stuck your hand in the ground before and thought, oh, that's really comforting. You should try it, just to see what your soil's like.
Yeah.
If you have any questions about local plans, maybe
Yeah.
what events are happening later. Volunteer events are really good for your health, mentally and physically. If you're looking for a good workout, honeysuckle hack. But being in those outdoor spaces, instantly, a lot of old buildings on campus are just these white boxes or these beige boxes. There's one room that has smoke damage, people were smoking in there. And you can see the weird. It's oh, that's been abandoned for a long. It's in the basement of a building. So but immediately I want to run outside, just sit in the grass. So any kind of we were just talking about the windows over there and how natural light and having big windows isn't just pretty, it's good for your health and your mental health. So if you want to help people with anxiety or depression, let them look at the grass. Those tiny little slot windows, doesn't matter how many of those you have, it's not gonna make us help. Especially if there's one room, it's just a bunch of those slot windows behind where everyone's facing, and everyone can just see they're dying. So those, all these, open, concept things, it's not just trendy, it's yeah. And I will share those papers with you if you want them.
Awesome.
I could email them.
Yeah, fabulous.
At SAU, oh, sorry. At SAU, we had Growing Green come and install a living wall this past year, and the interior designer students got to come and help install it. and it's beautiful, it's awesome, but it's kind of at like a dead end hallway where no one's really gonna see it. Maybe people passing by will see it and stuff. And I think that that is really comforting for the 2 people that get to experience it every day. But we do have a gallery that is right around the corner from our studio, and that's where my friends and I personally go because you can adjust the lighting. There's lots of natural lighting, comfortable furniture, and it's where it's design of all kinds. So graphic design, architecture, fashion, everybody's stuff is displayed in there. So it's very inspiring, but also just comforting. It feels comfy in there. It feels a little, not outdated, I guess, but it's very warm and dark. Not a good place like to probably be super productive, but it's a good place to go and just be comfortable.
Do you feel like those personal affects make you more comfortable?
100%.
Knowing that they're made by you and your colleagues versus just generic art, not that
100%.
generic, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't have a connection to it?
Yeah.
That's really interesting, and it speaks to placemaking and comfort about sort of owning a space. And I don't know if this happened for any of you, but we moved into a space a couple of years ago, and now there's 1 billion plants in it. You know, little by little, I think we have a good amount of natural light, but one by one, we've all just brought in so many different plants, and it's sort of become a cultural element of our space that we share plants, we give cuttings, we're starting plants, we're growing all these different things at our desks and all around the office. So it's interesting that many of you have talked about biophilia or just plants in general, that connectivity to nature, essentially, whether it's visual or direct or physical. Yeah, interesting comments. Okay, anybody have questions on that? Other things that would stimulate positivity in different spaces on your campus, or you could speak to other spaces you've been in that were particularly comforting.
I love our room where our samples, our memos are for design. There's 2 different tables there, one that can accommodate like 12 of us for smaller presentations that are less formal without electronics, and then a taller table to kind of just for, you know, with Aaron doing a little presentation there. But it's surrounded by fabric samples on the left, commercial samples on the right, carpet, everything, and I just love sitting in there and literally feeling everything. So I think like texture-wise for me it's like really comforting. Even when I'm shopping, when I walk through things, I always am touching it. So I think having an area where you can just not feel weird feeling things, yeah.
You're a designer. Through and through. Okay, I'm gonna touch on a couple more. We're almost out of time, actually. Got a few more minutes left. I'm gonna touch on a couple more and then maybe open it up to the audience for last questions, things like that. I'm just gonna go into this one. What role do you think students' feedback should play in the design and renovation of campus spaces? Huge, right, from the second. How can that feedback be better integrated into the decision-making process for those of you on this side of the room? You want to hear that again? What role do you think student feedback should play in the design and renovation of campus spaces? You are the end users, essentially. And how can the feedback be better integrated into the decision-making process? 2 parts. We'll let you guys go.
I mean, I think as students, if we're looking at us as end users, we're almost like the biggest client, but I think there's also different perspectives you need to look at, like the professors that are there full time, the people that are, you know, the janitorial staff. I think there's a lot of different aspects, but, you know, as students, I think we're there the most. We spend, you know, the most time there. Sometimes we're pulling all-nighters there. And, you know, our design building is a little bit older, and, you know, when eventually they renovate it, you know, it'd be nice to have a space where I could go and take a nap, and I'm not in, like, the middle of the lobby on the couch that we've had for 40 years. Sorry. But, you know, I think it's very important to, you know, maybe get a survey of all the students, but have a couple of representatives that are really in those meetings and speaking on what all the different students.
That's rarely done. That last thing that you said, I feel like that's a pivotal comment. Yeah, I don't think that's done as much as we should and we could.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else?
There's a club called the ADA, which is the Able Disable Association on campus, and professors and students will join that. So look out for that group. You can try to connect to that group of people because we do things like accessibility tours. So we'll walk around, take note of like, oh, this technically says it's accessible, but there's a spot on campus where there was construction, and the way that they restored the sidewalk, it was like an accessible ramp and then a bump onto the sidewalk. It was like, come on, like just look, sand it down or something. But there's usually a group of people who are surveying this and looking out for it. And there are concerned people, like, please just try to find them. They're there, I promise. Just connect with, a group of people who are specifically wanting to do that and talk to you.
Yeah, they're going to be the most invested, that's for sure. Anybody else?
I was just gonna say the same thing. I think it should have the same weight as like admin or teachers' feedback, because like you guys said, they're the end users. So in the end, like when it comes down to, I think the second part is like the decision-making process.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, I mean, I think I've been around long enough, but in a perfect world, yeah, it would be great if your client could afford everything that they wanted. I don't think that that's always the case, because everything's really expensive. We've all gone grocery shopping recently, but I think when you bring that feedback into it, then they have to weigh, okay, well, do we want to invest in stuff that the students are going to use or stuff that the faculty, you have to weigh those options. And when you pick stuff like seating that all the students really like, and then you end up investing in that, it ends up paying for itself in the end because the students use that space. So it's really great.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to read the second half of this again. How can that feedback be better integrated into the decision-making process? For anybody in the room, how do you think we can do better at that?
Basically going back to the student thing, like if it's for a certain area on campus, like for a certain major or something, incorporating people on the board that are that major that know what they use, what resources they use to help help make design happen, help integrate everything that they need.
Yeah.
And also different learning styles as well for each person. When we rate that is different in that sense too.
Good comment. Thank you. Yes, yeah.
So from the faculty side, administratively, we receive feedback from students on our performance in the classroom. I think it would be interesting to add in some questioning about the classroom itself and that experience, because all of those investments are quantified. It's based in some of those survey results.
Real data.
Yeah.
Yeah, real data. Great. Yes?
One of the main ways to better integrate it into the process is for institutions to understand how important it is, because as designers, we come into a university and you have tight design schedules, and sometimes the student involvement is just a box to check. It's not something that's really
Cursory.
Exactly. And so from our perspective, we are trying to provide the value to the institution and to what they care about. So it's getting that knowledge out to those who are the consumers of that information, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we can speak as designers about the importance of this. But are we going to say, okay, make the design schedule longer? We don't always have that choice.
Yeah.
So I think that it's getting the word out to the institutions. I think it's happening. It's a slow process.
It is. I think that's a challenging piece. You guys have any thoughts about how to better integrate your messages?
One of the projects I just did last semester was for an actual building called Ad Astra, and they are part education and part medical in a way. Students with autism ages 3 to 5 or 3 to 6, I want to say. And we had to do a lot of research before we even chose our selections and even space planning. And I just think the importance of researching who you're designing for is really important, and really trying to step into their shoes in general is just huge. It goes a long way.
Awesome. Okay, last call for comments.
I think your initial client review, you're thinking of so many different questions, different things. You're like I said, trying to check those boxes, and having that personal feedback from certain individuals, and having that time to just get those right questions answered at your initial client review really helps the process of what am I researching? Where do I need to go for my resources? Because we had a research reactor that I was designing for, and it just told me, hey, get 90 people in here and, squeeze them all in. And I'm like, well, I don't have accessible working spaces, right? Like, yeah, and so it's that challenge of like, what do they need? What can they get by without having, even though they may have it now? So just having that initial client questioning.
I think we should all, as an industry, do a lot more post-occupancy research as well. What did we do? What did we do? How can we make, we look at it, but how did it perform? How did it really perform? Have those tough conversations, get that tough feedback, because honing that information into better results going forward, huge, huge. We're out there making these spaces, and sometimes we have people on our teams that never go in them. That's another thing. We're sculpting space, and the sculptors never get to experience the space, which makes them disconnected from the affect of what that feels like, what that looks like, how do I feel, how do I respond, let alone asking the actual people that are in the spaces, how do they feel, how does that look to them, not me, it's their space. So yeah, great comments, great questions. We just have a few more minutes left. So I think it'd be a good opportunity to open up conversation to any and all questions you have around the classroom environment, imposing graduations coming up, what it feels like to have neurodiverse challenges or successes in spaces, anything anybody wants to ask, please, and welcome any comments. Don't go all at once, seriously. Come on now.
If I could make a suggestion, would anybody want to go on one of those walking tours with the ADA on Hustle?
Oh,
Like I can
sure.
get an email or something.
For sure.
I know it's after that. I think the president is graduating, so maybe they change it. So it might be a hot sec before I figure out who the right person is. But
That's a great offer. Yeah.
Send someone at POE an email and we can connect you guys.
Absolutely great.
No.
I think you said it. The comment of the day to me was that, how did you say it though? No, I wish, I can't get it exactly right, because but you said autistic people can still be beautiful.
Yeah.
It was like, man, that got me. Wow, that got me.
Some spies in here as well.
Well, just like, for me, it's designed for the people that we are around and we're serving, and man, that got me.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job. Anybody else?
Coming off like the people thing, with some challenges back then, I'm ADHD, if you like to say it, people were like, one of my teachers in high school told my parents basically that don't be surprised if he doesn't last his first in college. And years later, that you can prove me wrong, because I've just finished my first degree, now this is my second year finishing in May, so it can be done. It's just persistence and putting your foot forward and not letting anything hold you back.
Ignore the critics, man. Ignore the critics. Well, thank you all for being here. A special thank you to this panel and POE for putting this all together. I got a lot of insights. I'm gonna make that t-shirt though. I think I'm gonna make that saying a t-shirt. And I will live by it a little more in the work that I do. So thanks everybody. We appreciate you.